Welcome to All Saints Catholic School e-learning. Working it out. Law. The principle of correspondence. At the end of this video, you will have recalled what the principle of correspondence means, considered why this concept is important in criminal law, analysed whether the principle is adhered to in the criminal law. First, let's recall what we learned in the Big Idea video about the principle of correspondence. Pause the video and then read the statements and identify the 3 true ones. Unpause to find out the right answers. How many did you get right? So how does the principle of correspondence link to our study of law? Well, correspondence is just one of a number of principles and factors that go in to decide what behaviour is criminal. It is not the most important principle, and so therefore there are crimes that do not respect the principle of correspondence. One such group of crimes are known as constructive liability. This is where the defendant commits a less serious offence, but in doing so causes harm that they did not intend or foresee, for which they become liable. We have studied a number of these offences already. Can you think of 2 homicide offences that fit this description? Murder and unlawful and dangerous act manslaughter. Both of these it is possible to commit without intending or foreseeing the death of the victim. For murder, it's when you only intend to cause serious harm, and for unlawful and dangerous act manslaughter, it's not a requirement at all that you have the mens rea. For death, you simply need the mens rea for the base offence, the unlawful act that you commit that ends up causing the death of the victim. So neither of these homicide offences respect the principle of correspondence. Working it out. Now it's time for our activity. You would have seen in the Big Idea video that the principle of correspondence is tied up with the idea of fault in criminal law. So you may be required to discuss the significance of fault within the criminal law. And in that discussion, an important point to make is that not all crimes require the principle of correspondence. Therefore, there are some serious crimes that you have studied where the defendant does not have the mens rea and therefore arguably the blameworthiness to match the consequences of his actions for which he is criminalised. So in this activity, you're going to focus on the non-fatal offences that we've studied, and you're going to recall both the actus reus and the mens rea for the offences and identify which of those offences respect the principle of correspondence and therefore you could argue require fault equal to the liability of the defendant, but also those offences that do not respect the principle of correspondence, because the blameworthiness of the defendant does not go as far and does not match the liability they face for the consequences of their actions. First, a worked example to help you out. Starting with assault, recall what the actus reus and mens rea of assault is. Pause the video and write it down. Okay, now time to check your answer. The actus reus of assault is an act that causes the victim to apprehend the infliction of immediate unlawful force, and the mens rea is the intention to cause another to fear immediate unlawful force or recklessness as to whether such fear is caused. Looking at the actus reus and mens rea of assault, you can see that they match, that the liability doesn't extend beyond the defendant's mens rea. There is no consequence that the defendant didn't intend or foresee. Therefore, you can say they are fully at fault for the whole of the actus reus of assault, and that the crime of assault respects the principle of correspondence. Now it's over to you. Pause the video and complete this table on your piece of paper. You'll need to recall the actus reus and the mens rea for the remaining 4 non-fatal offences, and then for each one you need to decide, is there correspondence between the actus reus and the mens rea? If there's not, why not? Why does this crime not respect the principle of correspondence? Take care with the mens rea, especially for section 20, and when you think you've finished, unpause the video and check your answers. So, how did you get on? Pause the video and check that your answers match mine. Any mistakes, make sure you correct them, and then note to take further action after this video to consolidate your learning in that area. You really need to know off by heart both the actus reus and mens rea of all 5 of those offences. Did you get the correspondence right? You'll see that for both section 47 and section 20 there is no correspondence. These are constructive liability offences. For section 18 it's a little bit more complicated, but rather than the liability of the defendant going beyond what they intended, for when the defendant causes a wound, their liability actually goes beyond the harm they caused, because a wound need not be serious. It's a type of injury rather than a degree of injury. And so with section 18 there isn't really correspondence, but it's the other way round to what you expect and what you see in section 47 and section 20. For an extra stretch and challenge, you may want to go and find the Law Commission's report on non-fatal offences, where they make numerous suggestions to replace the existing set of offences with a new set that do respect the principle of correspondence. And it will be interesting for you to find out how those offences differ and whether you think they are an improvement on the current law. Great work. You have recalled what correspondence means, considered how this concept links to the idea of fault, and analysed whether non-fatal offences apply the principle of correspondence. Well done.